And welcome to our sunrise safari. As I said, it is Feline Friday, and hopefully it will be filled with many magical furry friends as we decide to try and move around in the Sabi Sands and look for many different things. There's lots of potential opportunities with the leopards from last night and the Nkuhuma pride that were seen drinking around the dam. Now, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Sebastian, and thank you to all of those that let us know about the lions that were drinking at Gari Dam. We have already found their tracks and are on them, so hopefully we will have a little bit of luck. But that just goes to show that it is live, it is interactive, which means hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or the YouTube chat should you want to get hold of us. Right, let's get back onto our tracking. Our tracks for the Nkuhuma pride cross straight into a easterly direction. Oh, look at that sunrise, Seb. That's going to be nice. Hold on. Let's just try and reposition Seb for a sunrise. So we've got a beautiful moonscape that just kind of was going down towards the horizon, and now a big giant orange ball of sun. How's that, Seb? Is that right there? Perfect, there we go, just in the gap. And so I was saying that the Nkuhuma pride is heading pretty much in the direction of where that sun is. It's all heading east, so they cut off from Mfumo Road quite close to Gari Dam and are now heading towards Gari Cutline side. So that's where we're off to try and see if we can't find that. And isn't that sun magnificent as it's coming over the horizon there? This is one of the best places in the reserve to actually watch the sunrise, up on these sort of the firebreak and Buffelshoek boundary. You're quite elevated in places here, and it makes watching the sunrise that much better. You can see how the sun has got those layers of colors, from the bright yellow on the top to the deep orange below. It is very, very beautiful. Nothing wrong with starting your day like that. So it's a good time when the sun rises just to sit quietly for a little bit, and sometimes just to listen. It's now when you'll sometimes hear the lions call for the last time, so maybe we'll get lucky with one of the Birminghams roaring, and that'll allow us at least to know where they've headed to. I'm not that confident. I think they might have gone into Buffelshoek, but we're certainly going to try and see if they're not still around. Right, Seb, let's go and see what we can try and find. That was beautiful nonetheless, though. Would have been nice with imagine Hosanna in a tree, or one of the leopards in a tree, and try and see if there was the sun behind it. It would have been absolutely fantastic. Just checking on all of these little tracks that come out of this block. So on any of the game paths, as we call them, which is just areas that things like hippos and elephants and buffalo and zebras and wildebeest walk every now and then, and it causes a nice clear path, and the cats often like to walk on that path. So it's a great place to check when you're looking for things like lions, because they often will come out on those areas. Nothing coming out here. I just want to let Tax and them know, who have just gotten out and getting going, that we have found the tracks for the pride and that they are heading in a certain direction. Tax. Morning. The tracks for the Nkuhuma pride cross over north east towards Gari Cutline side. Just on the firebreak now, nothing coming out so far. I'll keep you updated though. Copy that, thank you, Tux. So it's always important when getting out in the morning is just to update everybody as to what you've seen, and it helps them plan their routes and helps kind of get everybody in the right places. And they're saying they're going to be heading up into Buffelshoek today to try and see if they can't find anything up that side, and will let me know if they come across any sign of our lion friends on that side of the world. So that will be a big help. It means that if we carry on this side and they don't find any tracks, we know we have a good chance of finding them on our side of the world. So I believe a lot of you are excited to do Feline Friday. Well, if we have any semblance Friday, yesterday afternoon, we are in for a sterling Feline Friday. I'm pretty sure that Tandi and Hosanna will still be around Treehouse Dam area. I doubt that we're going to see them move. There was still enough meat to keep both of them there yesterday, so down that way a little bit later. But I just thought, yesterday we spent such a nice amount of time with the leopards and kind of ignored the lions a little bit, that it would be nice to actually spend a bit of time, and that's always fantastic when they're around. early morning stage, it would be nice to try and see if maybe we get a roar out to them. Right, we're in Gremlin Hollow, lots of gremlins, so let's quickly jump across towards Taylor, who's in the Masai Mara, and I beautiful sunset and golden light, which should make her quite happy, and hopefully she'll be on the action trail fairly shortly and she'll be able to find something very interesting.
Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all doing fantastic. My name is Taylor, and on camera with me today is Jahawi, aka Jar. And we're sitting watching the balloons as they float past us. Isn't this absolutely beautiful? I cannot wait to do my own hot air balloon safari. I think that it would be absolutely magical. But that's basically the end of their trip now. How cool is that? Isn't that an amazing scene? I'm confused. Alice, am I live? Sorry everybody, I'm not quite sure what's going on this morning. We're going to carry on. Let's go look for lions. But like most of you know who are regular viewers, this is a live and interactive safari. So I'm not sure if you're with me, if you're still at the mountain camp. You can hashtag Safari Live, or you can chat to us on the YouTube chat. So last night those lionesses, which you obviously saw from the sausage tree pride, they got up and they looked very excited to catch something, but unfortunately we got stuck in a torrential downpour. We had to sit the rain out, and then we ended up going home. The rain continued right through late into the evening. And it was miserable, and the ground's completely saturated. I mean, you can see there's big puddles here, so it wouldn't have been a good idea for us to be driving off-road at night after so much rain, and the ground is sort of waterlogged already. So we'll see how it goes today, but I suspect the roads are going to be quite slippery. Hopefully we'll be able to find some of these cats. Well, the lions are on the other side. I just want to quickly check around. Just trying to think. They crossed this drainage line to my right. I wonder if they would have come back to the same spot. Let's just go and have a look, because we know we can cross up there. This is pretty cool, floating around. Well, we're not floating around, but I'm pretending to float around in a balloon. Now, the thing that amazes me most is the landing. I don't know how people hold on. But I'm going to send you back across to the Sabi sand now with Tristan, and he's also searching for the big cats.
We are indeed, Taylor, and hopefully you will have a little bit more luck than what we've had so far this morning in finding of your lions, because we haven't found too many more signs or too much more of an indication of where these lions could be. The last sort of tracks come into this block. I can't see anything crossing northwards, which I suppose is a good thing. I might have missed them though. It's difficult on that fire break in places, so I'm just going to quickly check Gari cut line all the way through. If there's nothing here, then I'll have to follow those tracks via the vehicle through the block and just see if we can't find them lying, or see if they aren't lying somewhere in this block and that they're just taking a bit of a nap. We know yesterday that they were quite full, so I wouldn't be surprised if they just came to drink and then they found a place to rest and sleep for the night. So that's what we're going to hope for. They haven't come out onto Gowrie Cut Line though. This is a nice easy road to see tracks and nothing going across or even up or down the road. So I'm hoping that they're still sleeping somewhere inside here. It would be nice if they were. There's also tracks for what looked like a male leopard as well on the fire break, so I wonder if maybe Tingano or Mvula has not been moving around. I know they were both seen in the west last night, so they were seen on Simambili and Arethusa respectively, and I wonder if that's maybe the tracks from yesterday then of them heading in that direction. It's difficult to say, especially because I haven't been here for a while. I don't know where some of the animals are moved, and because it's dry and the roads are very dusty, it means that you get a situation where tracks will actually last for quite a long period of time, and it becomes quite difficult to age tracks if you haven't been around for a few days and know the movements of the animals. So we'll just have to keep an eye out on those and see where they kind of head to. It sounds like one male lion was crossed north towards Sydney's Dam from Sandy Patch side, but I don't know if that's the two males that were with the Nkuhuma pride. So it's going to be interesting just to try and find these lions and see if two of them are here or if it's just one. But it's definitely not the pride that's crossed that way, which is good news for us and for our endeavors this morning. There's an impala over there, so that's not a good sign of any lions lurking. But no tracks coming down towards Cut Line, so I think there must be somewhere inside here. Maybe, like I say, they've just drank and they've moved off the road slightly and lay down to rest. We know they often do lie in this block, so I'm going to try and follow the tracks with the vehicle through and see if I can't get a better indication of where they could be. It's going to be a little bit tough though, because this block is thick and the grass is long, which means that following tracks through here is going to be easier said than actually done, but we shall try our best. Curious one, you say if the lions lie down, the whole lot of them is going to be difficult to see them. Well, yes, it's going to be very true. If they are all flat and lying down, they don't really show up that easily, particularly in this early morning light. It's still a little bit on the dingy side, which means that lions blend in very well at this time, so it makes it a little tougher to find them, but I'm sure we will get some indication. So they crossed somewhere here, just trying to see where the track is, but it was just before this drainage section that they went across and into this area, so somewhere around here. Michael, you're asking that with these new cubs, will the pride spend more time on Djuma? Michael, I'm hoping so. I'm hoping that this is where they were lying here. So I'm hoping that with the fact that there are these new cubs and there are cubs that are around, that they do spend more time in this area, and we get a situation where we see the Nkuhuma pride a lot more than what we have over the last few months. It should keep at least the female here. Whether the whole pride stays is anyone's guess at this stage, because at the end of the day, if the pride needs to feed, they're going to move as much as they can to try and get the food that they need. They're not going to stick around in an area without food, so you'll find that they'll leave that female and then go, but it will bring them back a lot more. They are going to spend a lot more time here than what they have over the last little bit. I think that's my prediction, and hopefully those cubs survive. It will be really good to see them. I still haven't seen the little ones. I think Taylor's seen them and Byron's seen them, but I have yet to lay eyes on them, so I'm hoping that I'll get a chance to see them in the next few days. It'll be really nice. The best thing is if we get a carcass again, because if we get a carcass, that's generally when you find the lions will kind of sit on it and then the females will go back and forth. So I see their tracks are going down this little 2-track here, which is good news. So let's just try and follow this 2-track along and see where this takes us. Hopefully this takes us all the way through towards the fire break side, because there is a 2-track that comes out on that side, and maybe they're lying somewhere between here and where the fire break is. It's difficult to see their tracks as this grass gets longer, so it becomes harder and harder to actually see where they've gone. Just trying to see. Looks like they might have gone that way. Oh, I can't get through this side anyway. There's a bit of a drainage section, so let's try and follow it this side. Seb, just careful your head as we go through here. Let's try this way. Now, tracking using a vehicle is not the easiest nor the best way to be doing this. On foot would be a lot easier because you can actually go a lot faster. You would think with a vehicle that you'd be able to move and cover distance a lot more, but actually when you on foot, you stay on the tracks themselves and you can see the paths that the lions could potentially have used to move around. Whereas when you're in a car like this, you're often missing the tracks and driving over them, and you're doing big loops trying to follow with the vehicle instead of actually being right on the tracks the whole time. So it's a strange thing, but actually being on foot is much quicker when it comes to tracking through blocks like this. Just trying to see kind of the natural lines that would run through. So there's a pathway that comes through on my right side here, so I'm hoping to find the tracks. There we go, there the tracks are, so that's good news. Now the tracks are quite difficult to see, but I'll try and show you one. Seb, can you see that one over there? I don't know if it's going to be visible, but over there is what we're looking for, somewhere in that direction. So there we go. You can see the paw prints and the disturbance in the soil there. That's what we're trying to aim for as we're driving through here. It's not very easy and very clear to see them, but that is exactly what we're looking for. Maybe this one over here, Seb? There should be one somewhere at the back there. It might be a bit more visible. There it is. So you can just see it next to the stick. To the left of the stick you can see the angular pads of the back part of the foot and then the toes in the front. So that's the track that we were looking for as it moved through in this direction. So they must be somewhere between us and the fire break. Hopefully they haven't crossed on top of our tracks as we've gone around, but at least we've got the tracks here and we can follow these through. And they seem to be walking on a nice prominent path, which is fantastic. Well, you're wondering if while we're tracking, do I have to carry a gun? Well, no. So it's advisable to have a firearm in case you run into trouble or with varying different species of animals, because remember, when you're tracking things like lions, that's not the only thing that's out here. You could be tracking lions and walk into buffalo and elephants and leopard and hippos and all kinds of other dangerous animals that we get out here. So it's advisable to carry one, but funny enough, when a lot of the trackers that I've worked with and a lot of the guides that I've worked with actually prefer not to carry a rifle, and it sounds quite strange, but the reason being is that a rifle often makes you a bit complacent. So you'll get into a situation where you'll think to yourself, oh, I can do things that you shouldn't actually do, and you'll take risks that you really shouldn't because you now rely on this rifle and the use of it. Whereas when you walk without one, you're far more aware of your surroundings and you pay a lot more attention to what you're doing. So in some ways it's better to walk without it. In other ways, you really should. And if I was walking with anybody else, I would definitely take a rifle with me and make sure that I'm looking after those people that I'm responsible for. But if it's just me by myself, then I'm not too phased. In fact, I prefer walking without it. It keeps me a little sharper and makes sure that I actually watch what's going on. Now I've lost their tracks. Their tracks were behind me there. Check through here. So they haven't come this way, which means they've continued a little bit more to the east rather than north. So I need to just turn a little bit. Oof, but it's so thick on that side. Maybe they've come through. There's another pathway that comes through here, so they might have come on this side here. Just trying to use the general direction that they were heading. Right, so let's see. No sign here. I might have to go back to where I had those last tracks and just check exactly which direction they go so that I can actually get to the right place. And while I do that, I believe James Henry is out and about and has some cheetah that he would like to show all of you.
Your comms are clear now. Good morning, good morning. I speak to you after a chilly and wet night out in the wilderness. My name is James Henry. I'm going to try and smile now. Craig's on camera. Give us your upturned thumb, Craig. That's him smiling. Good. There, mercifully, in order to cheer up my morning, is a gorgeous, gorgeous sight. It is a cheetah, and it is, I know Scott's got 5, I've got 1. This chap's name, I think, is Hodari. I know that because of the small amount of white eyeshadow that he normally wears. No, that's rubbish. It's because he's wearing a collar and he's in a general vicinity where we think he is. So that's who that is there. I'm looking around him to see if he's likely to take to his claws and soft pads at 100 kilometers per hour and try and catch something delicious to eat for breakfast, but I can't see anything that is going to be particularly useful to him from a hunting point of view. There is a long line of zebra moving from the north to the south, and they seem to be disinterested in him, and he would disinterested in them because, well, he's just not big enough to take them. And then there's a small group of wildebeest off across the way, and I don't know if I don't think they would have anything that he could catch. What he'd be looking for here is the presence of a Thomson's gazelle, and a Thomson's gazelle, of course, would be the first thing for him to eat in this particular area, because, well, anything else around is just a bit big. He might try and take something like an oribi, possibly. Somebody's asking a question, I'm afraid, but I've just got robot voice from Siri in the final control. Let me shift very slightly forward and see if we can't get a better view of him and be a little bit more question power from Siri. Can you see where Hodari went, Craig? In the grass there. Let me reverse slightly. And right. Okay, we've just had a message from the final control saying we're going to go to Taylor, who's got a lion. You see him there?
Not just one lion, but the 2 sausage tree pride lionesses, and then of course the youngsters that go with it. But this is actually quite nice because that's the first time that I've seen this young fella that's walking off to the right. His shaggy mane is just starting to develop. Aren't they beautiful? Right, let me reposition because I'm just trying to figure out where they're going. The other lioness moved off. I hope they're not going into the drainage line. That's going to make it difficult for us. Right, go around quickly. Let's see. I don't know if they caught something. If they did, it probably would have been something small. Maybe a young zebra. Let's see, I think they are going into these lugger systems. Now, actually, I want to just show you. So look at all the... parked. Sorry, let me go back because now I've parked on the termite mound. Or we'll just do that. Look at the hot air balloons and the zebras in the distance. Now, they're watching the lions. They know that they're here. That's actually how we figured out that they were lions. We knew the area that they were in, but we couldn't quite sort of find them. We took our off-road track from last night to try and get to the last spot, and they've come back to exactly where we first found them yesterday afternoon. So they're not hiding themselves from the zebra, not at all. See, there's another lioness. Please don't go down into the drainage lines line because then we can't view. Oh, there's the other one sitting right on the top of the termite mound. I've just spotted her. I only thought I could only see one lioness to start off with. Here we go, just to the right. Perfect. There she is. He's watching. Heather, you're wondering if the big cats are bothered by the muddy terrain. No, I don't think so, not so much. I think it must make it a bit difficult if they are chasing after prey and it's on a road of some sort, because then the ground is quite sort of sloshy. Oh, big yawn from her. And they can slip and slide, but again, they could work into their favor with regards to trying to catch some prey, because they might slip and slide and do exactly the same thing. And I was talking about this the other day. If zebras are being chased, or wildebeest are being chased by lions, and they slip and fall, well, unfortunately, they'll probably be the end of whichever species of animal that's slipped to the ground. Those lions will catch them, but let's keep up with them. We'll go up a little bit further. I'm happy to see them again. I'm really enjoying spending time with this pride, and I think let's see. So one of the older cubs we now know is a male, definitely a male. Let's see if we can't sex the other 3 cubs and just have a little look around. I haven't seen all of them just yet this morning, so I wonder if they might maybe having a siesta a bit further down. Or I wonder, where did this male come from? I can't remember seeing him with him yesterday. I don't know. Let's wait. Before we say anything more, let's find the rest of the pride. Now, Aurelia, you're wondering how far off can a lion smell a carcass? You know, it's very difficult to answer questions like that, just because I don't know how someone would really test that. I think it depends on a number of different things. How old the carcass is there wind that's blowing this rotting scent in their direction? Are there also other elements that could help the lions, you know, potentially figure out that there was a carcass? Are there vultures in the sky? Are there jackals running around? Are there hyenas hanging around? So I don't think it's just them necessarily just smelling a carcass. I think it could be a number of different things, but I don't know. But I reckon it's quite far away. Their sense of smell is unbelievable. I'm now confused. Are you the 2 lionesses we had yesterday, or are you another 2 lionesses? Because I don't see any of the cubs. I just see this older fella. Maybe, remember how I was saying to you that I've been reading that there are supposed to be 5 cubs? I wonder if this isn't two more lionesses of the sausage tree pride, and perhaps this is the 5th older cub. But I mean, he's not particularly young. He looks like he's almost a year and a half old. Oh my goodness, the hot air balloon is going right above us. Can we look at the hot air balloon very quickly? Look at the lion, he's looking at it. Look how it's going right over the top of us. That's so cool. We're waving. That's amazing. Now, the lions actually didn't seem to be too bothered by the sound of the hot air balloon. I suppose the animals that live along these river systems get used to the fact that there are hot air balloons every single day. Now, Will, a common question of the last few days, you're wondering at what age do lions develop their manes? You can normally start to see a male from about 6 months. You start to see a little bit of a fluffy chest, and obviously it grows and grows as they get on. But you can see it almost a year and a half old. You can see quite clearly long strands of hair underneath his chin. So I would say from about six months old, you start to see the fluffiness. But then again, you can start, if you're struggling to identify, you can just look for the other bits. Look at them running now. They're very playful this morning. So I think that's what's happened here. I think these are maybe 2 other lionesses of the sausage tree pride, which is quite exciting. Wonder where the others have gone, because they were around here. Maybe they picked up on their scent and they're trying to trace them again, but I know they went that way. But Jahawi and I were talking about how amazing it is that the lions, if they're unsuccessful, they go back to the same spot that they were laying in, which I think is amazing. We don't really see the lions of the Sabi Sand doing that. Their behavior is slightly different. So we'll follow them and we will see where they take us. Like I said, they don't look particularly full. They look like they've eaten something maybe a little taster, but they could do with a decent meal. Hello, girl, you're beautiful. She's watching those zebra. I'm just going to get in front of them because we know they're going to come around this way. This is so cool. You know what we need to do is, I'm going to ask a favor from all of you. Please, can you take screenshots of these lionesses' faces? We need to be able to identify that entire pride, and I haven't got pictures of all of the lionesses, so we'll try and go around again. But if you can, if you see anything in particular, sort of identifying features, that would be great. They're just walking in front of the car now, hugging the lugger, the drainage line. They're still creeping up on some zebra, but the zebra know they're here. They haven't been sneaky about their presence, but maybe they're going to use the drainage system, walk all the way around. and maybe they're going to try and catch some zebra, but who knows. We'll keep following them. Let's keep following them. I would like to find the others though and just figure out exactly, maybe they're going to meet up. Oh no, don't do that. Don't go on the other side of the drainage line. Joe, you're wondering how many hours a day do lions sleep? Lots, up to 18 to 20 hours, but that depends on their activities. Obviously, if they've been racing around trying to catch some prey, they're going to sleep for a little bit longer. If they don't, if they've been resting up, unsuccessful, I suppose they use quite a bit of energy as well, so they do need to recover. So you'll hear a lot of people say lions are lazy, and trust me, lions can definitely be lazy, especially at this time of the year when there's so much food around. They're not having to really put too much effort into stalking the animals. But it is important for them to conserve energy, because if they spend their days running around, they're not going to have any energy in their reserve tanks to try and catch these animals. But I'm going to go around and see if I can get another view of these lions. They're on the other side of the drainage line. I'm going to send you back into my dear friend Tristan's car, where I don't know what he's going to find this morning, but he is the king of cats.
Well, we're trying our very best, Taylor. It's not quick work trying to track through this block, but we're still on the tracks. This pathway that leads in front of me, that runs like this, is where they've been walking. So we managed to find the tracks again, and they're kind of going up and down and all over the place, and which is fairly typical for lions as they move around through these blocks. Sometimes they'll bump into prey animals and they'll spread out a little bit and then come back together. So it takes a bit of time to just kind of decode where exactly they're going. The problem is we're now starting to get right towards the fire break, so if they've crossed over the back of my tracks, I'm not going to be very impressed with them if they went into the north. So hopefully they've laid down somewhere close by. At least we still have their tracks, and at least we're still able to follow, although it's getting rather dense and thick now. Just trying to see. They still head down that way along the pathway, so let's go around, Seb, and try cut that pathway off. It's starting to get quite thick in here now, which is going to be a little tough, but I'll just try and break through this side. I still don't see any heads popping up as we're going, so I'm not sure we're that close, because... Do you see them, Seb? Yes! Well, that was good. So I can just see the mane, as Seb did, of one of the big males. So I reckon the rest of the pride must be somewhere here as well. Right, let's see now. Where is going to be the best way to get to you guys? Let's have a look. So, in case you're wondering what we've seen and why we kind of celebrate, the lions aren't just on the other side of this thicket. And I'm just trying to get around towards where they are. Where's one of the males is right here. I don't know where the rest of them are. So Mfumo is here with us. I'm sure the rest are somewhere in this general vicinity, because his tracks were with the rest of the tracks. This is the best we're going to be able to get for now. The sort of view is, well, the pathway towards where he is not easy. I'll try to get round towards his face just now, but you can see he's kind of looking over his shoulder. So I wonder if the rest aren't just spread out somewhere here and lying down. But at least we found one of the Birminghams, so if we don't find the rest of the Nkuhuma pride, at least one of them is here, which is good news. And he's looking full and well fed and healthy. Now hopefully he's not going to get into his habit of dropping darts, because Mfumo likes to pass wind. It's quite funny, Taylor and I were talking about this the other day. Every time we're with him, he seems to emanate a foul-smelling gas that comes out, and after feeding especially. So hopefully he's going to behave himself. Last night he didn't. Last night he was letting go of a few sort of bombs, and hopefully this morning things will be a little bit better. But he's looking magnificent. He's in really good condition. His body health is good. You can see there's no visible scars or scratches. around his body or his back and his hip area. So he really is looking very good, and he's recovered fully from any of those facial injuries that he had. Some of you may remember last year he had that big hole in his face, and I know a lot of you were worried that he wasn't going to come right because there was maggots and all kinds of things that were feeding off that wound. But you'll see when he hopefully turns to face us that he's absolutely fine. Seb, I think let's try and just squeeze past and get to the front of him so that we can use the light in our advantage. Just careful there, Seb. Lasmai, you say he's so handsome even with his big head. Well, I'm sure he'll appreciate that. He seems to not be taking... With his... Sorry, Megan, go ahead. Oh, his bed head, not his big head. Ah, okay, yes. Well, I suppose he does have a bit of it. He's got a few new scars on his face, that's for sure. Those were not there last night when I saw him. So he's obviously had a little go with either the females or one of the males. You see a fresh little cut between the eyes there. Those weren't there last night. Were they there last night, Seb? I don't remember them. Yeah. So you can see 2 claw marks right in the front of his face. So I wonder if maybe him and one of his brothers didn't have a little go at each other last night. We know that there was a second Birmingham with the Pride, so maybe that's what happened, is they had a little altercation, and that's maybe why he's off the back. The rest of the Pride might have carried on a little bit and moved off. So we'll try and see if we can't find them. But if he's here, I would imagine the rest of the Pride can't be too far away at all. Shame, boy, did you get a little smack to the face? It's hard being a male lion. Everybody always thinks that male lions have it easy because they're big and powerful, but it's not at all. The females and even the males will fight with each other quite a bit, and they often scarred up, particularly the males. And poor Mfumo seems to have had it the worst out of all the brothers. He's got so many scars on his face now, but it adds to his character. He's almost got this sort of hardened look about him, and now that his mane's starting to grow a lot more than what we see on the other Birminghams, he's starting to get these kind of big fluffy mane, and those scars just adds to the whole appearance and makes him look a lot more sort of hardcore. Exquisite Bliss, you say his mane looks like it's on fire. Well, the light this morning is just beautiful. We couldn't ask for any better light than that. Look at that. Gold color on him, and he's still got quite a ginger mane in comparison to his brothers. So Nena and Suku and Tinyo all have a lot darker manes, particularly around the chest area and then over the top of the head. You can see his has got no black on the top yet, but all the others will have patches of black on the sides and the top. So his is developing and getting bigger and darker by the day. There's a little bit of black, I suppose, on the mohawk, but it's not really much just yet, and is getting bigger and darker by the day. Shame, have you got a sore paw there as well now? There's a little bit of a bite mark on the paw as well. Alicia, are you wondering if Mfumo is the one that tolerates the cubs so well? Well, I know that Tinyo is often quite aggressive, but I've seen him around the cubs and actually feeding right next to a cub and not really being too aggressive to the cubs at all. Whereas Mfumo, I've actually seen him completely relaxed. Yes, in fact, last night, remember, Seb, we had one of the cubs coming up and rubbing its face on Mfumo, and he actually groomed the cub back. So he does have a high tolerance for them, it seems. Obviously, we haven't seen any new cubs with him recently, but with the older ones, he seems to be completely tolerant of them. He lets them come and sort of nuzzle up to him and see him. Oh, you've got an open, and there's definitely a mark there of some sort. So I don't know if he's maybe ripped out a claw or if there's a bite to his foot, and that's probably why he's grooming. There we go. You can see it. Yeah, that's a nice big wound that he's got there. So I wonder if it's not a bite, and there's another one on the top side. So let's see if he's going to get up and move. He seems to be very aware, and I can hear Franklin's alarm calling not too far from us. So I'm sure the rest of them are not too far, and I wonder if he's not going to go that way. I'd imagine he's going to have a slight limp now with that wound. That's going to be a little raw and a little sore, but it's nice and clean. There's no sort of infection there or anything, and I would imagine it would have happened last night, but he'll be okay. It's much harder than everyone would think. They are able to overcome these wounds quite a bit. Now, Patty, you're wondering if lions could die from infection. Yes, they could. If they don't get nutrients and water and they don't keep that wound clean, then infection can take place. But actually with lions, they really are quite hard animals. They're animals that are able to deal with a lot, and I've seen lions with dislocated hips with massive cuts all over them, big bite marks through their paws that eventually come right. It just takes them a bit of time. They've got to kind of hobble their way around, and it's a bit like Shadow to some degree. We saw her with that injury up front, and where she couldn't even put weight on it, and she really battled and kind of limped around. And then yesterday we saw she's starting to put weight, and slowly but surely she seems to be coming right. So it's the same thing with him. That wound's going to take a bit of time to heal, and it actually looks like the claw is almost come out, although it's a bit behind there. So there's, what is it? Is it just a hole that he's got there? I don't know, he might have lost the claw, but you can see the flies are landing on it already, which is going to drive him crazy. But it looks like that dew claw, so that claw that sits slightly higher, might have been ripped out, which it does happen from time to time, and it will grow back if it is the claw system, and he'll be in a little bit of discomfort, but eventually it will heal up and he'll be okay. The nice thing about that is that wound looks nice and clean, is that it's still pink, healthy flesh, so he shouldn't have too many issues with it. And as long as he keeps grooming it and makes sure that he keeps it out of the mess of carcasses and things like that, he should be just fine. But it explains why he's maybe behind everybody else. He's just decided to rest up. The sun is coming out now. It's going to be a warm day, and so he's decided just to stay sitting here, and maybe the rest of the pride has moved off a little bit with the other Birmingham boy, and he'll catch up tonight with a series of contact calls. He's definitely aware of something because he keeps putting his head up towards that direction. So Rebecca, you're wondering if Mfumo is the most docile of all the Birmingham boys. Rebecca, to be honest, they were all pretty docile. I haven't really had too many issues from any of them. In fact, I've never had any aggressive encounter with any of the Birmingham boys. Mfumo seems to be super chilled. I've seen him kind of with the Cubs and with the Pride, and he never seems to be too aggressive to even them. So it's difficult to say. Also, we've spent so little time with the Birmingham boys over the last year. It's hard to know what their demeanors are like from a day-to-day basis. We really don't get to follow them enough every day to see who's more aggressive than the other ones. But I mean, Tinyo tends to show a lot more sort of growling aggression around carcasses and those kind of things from what I've seen. But it would be interesting. I would love to spend more time with all four of them and get to know them a little bit better. Unfortunately, they've got such a big territory now that they seem to roam around all over the place, and it makes it very difficult for us to actually get to know them that well, because they tend to just be fleeting glimpses, a day here, a day there, and then we don't see them for 3-4 weeks. So hopefully they'll spend a little bit more time here now with the new Cubs. Maybe that will keep Mfumo and Tinyo in this area. We know that they like to spend a lot of time with the Nkuhuma Pride, so I'm hoping that with the Cubs of the Nkuhuma Pride being here, that these guys decide to stick around as well. But lots of grooming going on. I'm sure the flies are driving him mad. One real human, you wondering how serious their battles could become. So I would imagine you're talking about within the Pride itself, but if not, then as serious as you can imagine. I mean, lions will kill each other over territory, and I've seen male lions fighting, and it's quite something to watch. And even as coalition members, they will go after each other from time to time, and I've seen coalition members, the Majingalans, fight with one another. I've seen the Hilda's Rock males down in the south fight with each other, so they do it from time to time. Oh, there's another lion right there. There's a female that's just in front. That's why he's perked up so quickly. So there she goes. She's walking in front of us. Well, just to the left of us. So the rest of the Pride is actually right here. I can now see a couple other tummies and various other things. So the Nkuhuma Pride is here with Mfumo, which is good news. So we'll go and have a look at them. They're behind that thicket. That's why we didn't see them, is it's very difficult. You can see, look at how she camouflages behind there. But Mfumo definitely watched her, and she didn't go unnoticed to him. She's looking around, but I think this is where they're resting. Like I say, I can see one more by the looks of its tummy just in the distance there as well. So I think the rest must be here, or close by at least. Yeah, she's just starting to come out a little bit now, which is good. Are you going to lie down there? Now, I wonder if Mfumo is going to get up and go after her. But look at that camouflage. Look at how the face just disappears in that grass. You would never know that there's a lion there if you drove past. But you can just see every now and then the ear flick or a tail move. And it just goes to show. Here comes Mfumo limping along. Shame, buddy, is that foot of yours a little tender? Now, he wants to come round. Oh, there we go. Anna Marie, you're wondering if this claw injury could affect his hunting abilities. Anna Marie, no, not really. When they start hunting and they're chasing things, adrenaline is going to pump through his veins, and he'll forget completely about that. It'll be sore afterwards, but at the time of his hunting, he'll be just fine. So it's not too bad an injury, and you can see, look, he's walking already. He's limping a little bit, and he's a bit ginger on it, but it's not too bad. I mean, it's not anything like what we saw with Shadow yesterday. He's walking a lot better than even she is with that injury. So, he'll be fine. That's not too serious, and that's part of a male lion's life. They often have these kind of injuries around the legs and face, and he'll be just fine. You can see now that he's starting to walk, and it gets rid of the bit of the stiffness. He'll start walking a little bit better. But look how beautiful that light is on him. And he's making his way towards that female, slowly but surely. Or are you going to decide, is that where you want to lie down? Okay, let's go forward and just see if we can't find the rest of the pride here, and we'll see where they're all lying. And now, I'm just going to try and get around this area.
Oh, it's a pity about Mfumo being on the injured side, but I'm actually not surprised. We know that he is, well, always seems to get into fights quite often, and he ends up with scars. Now, our lions are sort of sat down in this little thicketed area. I wonder if they're not going to rest for the day. There is this little prick, but they're up and down every now and then. The zebra are definitely around, but the zebra know that they're here. So I'd be surprised if they manage to sneak around and try and, well, catch them. So what we will do is after this, we're probably going to go look and see if we can find the others. They might be off to the left. There's some thickets in the distance, very far away in the base of the escarpment. So I'm wondering if they didn't go down that way. And I keep seeing things that could potentially be lions, and then they just turn into zebras. How rude. I wish they would just be lions, because I'm sure they're around there. Maybe they just tried to escape the rain last night with the young cubs. I don't think that they would have enjoyed the howling wind and the pouring rain. It actually got exceptionally cold last night too. So I think everybody would have tried to head into the drainage line, and then of course also use these shrubs to their advantage, just by of course hiding behind them. But that's really it out here. Like I said, the zebra know that they're there. I don't think they're going to do too much more. Maybe rest here, and then maybe a little bit later, once they've had a sleep and the zebra have forgotten that there were lions here, or these herds move off and new herds move in, there's definitely no shortage of food. They'll maybe try and catch something. But just when I was looking over my shoulder, I don't know if anything's going to come this way. They might actually head towards the river line. Those zebra wildebeest. I'm just scanning around. That massive herd of buffalo we also had yesterday, they moved off. They went back towards, well, the area that the Angama pride like to hang around. Okay, let's leave these cats. And I need to just try and find a way out again. I'm going to go all the way around. Okay. I wonder where they've come from though. We'll keep an eye on them. We hear the zebra alarming, and then we know that they're moving. Lots of eyes on them. Just need to find my way back out again, oh there, that's where I came from. If you thought that these cars are hard to drive, no, if I thought Rusty and Wendy were hard to drive, the cars up here feel like they don't even have an inch of power steering. Turn, and we're sliding in the mud. Okay, we're going to go and try and find some more lions. I'm going to send you across to James, who has been out most of the evening. Let's go see what else is on the menu.
Well, on the menu, as I said, for Hadari the cheetah would be Thompson's gazelles, and there are 3 such gazelles. Unfortunately, we're now many miles away from Hadari the cheetah, and that is because Hadari the cheetah is in an area that does not allow us communications with the final control, which is deeply upsetting, of course, but it is nevertheless very pleasant to watch Thompson's gazelles that are not being harassed by predators. Now, we're still waiting for the onset of the gazelle migration. Ideally, or expectedly, there should be some 100,000 of them booking through this area at some stage in the next few weeks. But as yet, they have yet to arrive. And we have only these chaps to look at, the few that are resident here. Now, my update from last night is an enormous amount of rain that side of the river, and we did, of course, have a huge amount of rain this side as well, and up here yesterday and the day before. So I think that you're going to find that the herds of wildebeest, zebra, those that Thompson's gazelles that are here, and the eland, are going to be very spread out over the next little while. If the sun bakes down for a little while on the grasslands here, I think that they will all go green, and that's going to allow the animals to settle for a little while. All right, Alice, you may now go ahead with your question. Ah, Michelle. That cheetah we had earlier. Is he part of the coalition, or is this a different collared male? Michelle, he's a different collared male. His name is Hadari. He lives on his own. I think he, somebody's going to wrap me over the knuckles if I get this wrong, but I think he's the son of a very famous cheetah called Amani, I think, and he is a young male as far as I'm aware, and he plies his trade around where he was there, down to where we are here on the river, and up towards, we've seen him just about where Taylor is. I know it's difficult for you to picture that space, but it's probably a space of some, I don't know, 10,000 hectares or so. So, you know, that's the area that he's in. The collared male that Scott is with is a chap called D'Artagnan. He is the leader, of course, of the Musketeer Coalition. And it does amaze me how many coalitions of male anything are known as musketeers. Anyway, there are 5 cheetah boys, and that one's name is D'Artagnan. And he seems to be the oldest member of the coalition that Scott has across the river. Oh, very bright sun. Let us continue. We're going to go along the river for a while and then cut across towards our old pride of lions that like to live in the rocks. They weren't there yesterday, but we'll just see if they are now. Lots and lots of zebra around the place, very few wildies, but there were signs of them turning around and coming back this way. Now, I wasn't able to talk to you yesterday on account of our technical glitches, but we did find huge herds of wildebeest the other side of the river, near Sala's camp, that is in the sort of mid-southeast of the Masai Mara National Reserve, and some up towards the sort of central eastern parts, but very little actually just across the river. So those that have crossed the river have really just carried on going and then turned down towards the south. Not quite in the same numbers that they were around here, so I don't know where the rest of them are. Sassy, you're wondering if gazelles have a migration. Well, as I was mentioning, they are part of the Great Migration, which contains some 1.5 million wildebeest, supposedly some, what's it now, I've forgotten all my figures, 300,000 zebra, 200,000 Thompson's gazelles. Well, where are they? I don't know, I can't see them. There's just a few here, so I don't know where they are, but they move up behind the migration herds of zebra and wildebeest, the sort of rear guard, if you like, because they like the very short grass and the very short plains that are left in the wake of the enormous herds of much larger grazing ungulates. And the reason they like the smaller or the less well-vegetated areas is that they can see what's going on, and they like shorter grass. I walk in the rain. I'm actually not sure about the breeding patterns of the Thompson's gazelle. I know that Springbok, which is the sort of South African equivalent, are able to breed twice a year, and often do in favourable conditions. But I don't know if these guys give birth on the hoof, as it were. We've seen a number of very small ones in this area that have just been born now. I think to residents, though. There's a little mongoose. In fact, there are lots of little mongoose just in front of us with the zebra there. Now, I think the banded mongoose here are much bigger than the ones at home. Isn't that great? I think they're such fun. And this would be the meerkat equivalent, I suppose. Of, well, the meerkat equivalent that we have here in the Mara. Good. Taylor was asking about... Sorry, say that again, Alice. Taylor was asking about dwarf mongoose. Did you say? No? Yes? Taylor was busy trying to habituate dwarf mongoose at Djuma. She would have had success, I believe, had she managed to spend sufficient time with them. They are quite... they will definitely tame. They will definitely get to the point of being habituated like meerkats. The problem is, well, that's not a problem, but at Djuma we tend to be looking for creatures like Mfumo and Hosana and other characters like that. And you'd have to dedicate probably 6 months to spending time with the mongoose troop. I didn't do it. I know what you mean. You say they look like little armadillos. I suppose they are the same shape, but they certainly are not scaly. That is quite coarse fur that they have and loose skin. And while they do sort of have a similar shape to armadillos, they're absolutely not related. They don't have any scales on them. And so, no, they're not at all like armadillos. Seems to be more cloud cover coming up here. Let's just go left if we can there, Kruger. There's quite a large group of Thompson's gazelles. Maybe these guys have come up from the south. Maybe they're the first bunch of migrating gazelles. I'm not sure. I think they are so magnificent. Little things, not big at all. Probably stand about maybe 3 feet at the shoulder, and they can't weigh more than, I don't know, 25 kilograms for a ram. You don't have a gazelle ram, you have a gazelle. What do you have? Yes, you do have a gazelle ram. Well, now, 78, you asked a very interesting question, and I mean, I don't know how long you have, but you say, do I think that female that are a preference of predators? Well, as you can see, the gazelles both have horns, right? Male and female have horns. And the general theory goes as follows, that if male and female have horns, then they use those horns in order to defend themselves from predators. If females do not have horns, as is the case with the impala, then the horns are probably largely either decorative, in much the same way as a peacock's tail would be, or much more likely used to fight intraspecifically. So they will be used to fight each other. The males will use their horns to fight each other. Now, in the case of something like an impala, that is almost certainly the case. Their defense against being killed is to run away. Their defense against each other is to horn each other when they're, having a fight over ladies. Now, I have a tough time believing that a gazelle would ever turn and face those horns at a predator, but it is possible. But otherwise, there's very little explanation for why a female would need horns. Certainly with buffalo, that is the case. Females will use their horns for defense. Wildebeest will use their horns for defense. Wildebeest seldom use their defense for anything, so I'm not sure why they have got them. Now we're going to hand you back over to Tristan, who seems to have, well, a pride of sleepy cats.
We do indeed, James. It is a big pile of sleeping lions that all stack together. There you can see in one long line is the entire Nkuhuma pride. So it looks like all 5 females are here, as well as the 6 cubs. It's difficult to count them when they're all lying so close together. You can see everybody's kind of got a connection somewhere. So we've got Ambi's, it's on the far left here, and then another one, and then the tail joins the rest of them, and there goes the line and the train all the way back. And it's just that one on the other side of the log that is not connected at this stage. Otherwise, every single one is touching another one at some point. It's quite funny, actually, to see. So it's just them. It doesn't look like there's any other signs of another Birmingham boy. It's Mfumo and just the Nkuhuma pride that are together. Now, interestingly, that the female with the cubs is here as well. So hopefully, at some point today, we might find her tracks going back towards where the little cubs are. That would be quite nice. At least we know that she's here with them by the looks of it. And if she is, then hopefully this afternoon she decides to go towards the cubs and we can kind of track her down and go and get a look at those little ones and see whether she's actually moved the den. It'll be interesting to see if she has. They often do move dens fairly quickly, and the little ones urinate and defecate and make a bit of a mess around the den site, so they often do move them every couple of weeks just to keep those little ones safe. So I'm sure she will head in that direction at some point, especially if they had a bit of a meal yesterday. That's when they often do go to the cubs. They get nutrient-rich milk and they then go from here towards that area. But isn't that cool to see? It's just like a big carpet of sleepy lions. And I think that's it for the morning. I don't think they're going to get up to too much more. Mfumo has decided that he's done for today. He's decided to sleep and is completely passed out on his side somewhere in the distance, and then the rest of the pride are, well, following suit at this stage. It's just the one little cub at the back there that's still grooming. Oh, what's that? A little fly, maybe. It's always love watching cats when they try catch flies. It's very entertaining. They kind of snap away at them and inevitably they miss completely, but they try their best anyway. And the flies today seem to be quite bad. I wonder if maybe the fact that Mfumo's got a couple of wounds is attracting them, but all of these lions have been flicking ears and tails, and it's an indication that the temperatures are starting to warm up. As we get into the summer months, we start to see a lot more flies coming out and a lot more insects that are going to irritate these poor lions, as well as temperature that's going to start affecting them as well. So it's about to become a lot more uncomfortable. They've had a good time over the winter. It's much easier for a lion in the winter months. It doesn't get nearly as hot and far less to worry about in terms of insects. There's still going to be ticks that are going to come out, and like I say, a lot of these biting flies, and so they might as well rest now before the real heat comes later. Dr. Rob, you say a carpet of cats? Well, most certainly they really are. They kind of yeah, there's nothing else to say. It is a carpet completely. Not one of them has paid any attention to us, and in fact we came, when we first arrived, it was just Amber's that had her head up, and then they all settled down like this. So they are sleepy at best, and it's interesting because the Nkuhuma pride generally covers a lot of ground at night. They tend to move quite a bit, and from where we had them last night to here, it's not really that far. In fact, for them it's normally, I would say, probably an hour, 45-minute walk to this position. So I'm quite surprised that they didn't carry on further, and especially because they were at the dam and moving around sort of 3 o'clock this morning our time, which means that in 2 hours they didn't really cover too much ground. It seems as though they really weren't too interested in actually going too far. I suppose if they had a meal yesterday, there's no real need to be hunting last night, and that's maybe why they haven't covered as much ground as I would have thought they would. When I was looking at Mfumo, he seems to have another bite also on his leg. So whatever it was that got hold of him, it's not a very pleasant situation. So he's lying just over there in the thicket, and you can see he's a very sleepy cat. So he's got another wound there. You can just make it out around that tuft of hair. There's another bite over there. So it's difficult to know exactly what happened to him. I would be very surprised if all of these bite wounds are from a mating that he might have done with females. I'm not sure if any of the Nkuhumas have been mating with the Birminghams while I've been away, but It would be interesting if there was. It must be amber eyes if there is a mating lioness, but that's not typically signs that you would see from a mating individual. You'd find that those cuts on his face might be from mating with the female, but bites to the paw and to the leg is generally a scrap that he's had with another male, and particularly probably one of his coalition members. It seems strange, but when there's a carcass and something small like a wildebeest, or if there's females that are potentially in heat, the males will go at each other to try and just keep each other at bay and to try and establish that dominance over the food as well as the females, and that's probably what's happened. In all likelihood, the other Birmingham has gotten hold of him. I didn't do it. You're wondering if all the lions have a tan stripe down their back like that female there. Well, they do actually. They all got this kind of thicker fur that crosses over there, and it causes this almost line to develop. It's more prominent in some of the cats, so some of them you won't see it as much, but pretty much all of the lions do have that darkening section on their back. It's more noticeable now when they're lying in this golden light. When the light becomes a little bit more harsh, you don't see it as much, but it's just a thicker area of fur that makes it appear as though there is a line there. It's not a change in the coloration of the fur, it's just an area where the fur is slightly longer and bushier that you get that stripe that develops. But these guys, I think, are done for the day. I don't think the Nkuhuma pride is going to move too much. You can see a bit of grooming going on. So that cub will groom itself before falling asleep. It's quite common to see this with lions. So they do groom when they're waking up and starting to move. But just before they fall asleep for the day, they'll do the exact same thing. And the reason for that is because as they've been moving around here, we were talking about ticks earlier and various other things, they pick up these parasites, and they also disturb a lot of their fur as they walk. So they go past bushes and trees and thorn trees, and that all pulls at the coat and it will loosen bits of fur, and so they just get themselves into good condition before they decide to start sleeping. And then when they wake up again, it's less of a grooming process. They can groom themselves again just in case anything's gotten onto them, but really this is kind of the end of the day for them. Although that one's getting up. Where are you going? Are you going to add another link to the chain? No, I'm going to go join the other one on the other side. I think it's starting to get warm now, so I wouldn't be surprised we see them getting up and moving a little bit to shady areas. It's very little shade where we are now. Mfumo's got a nice bit of shade, and where that cub is laid now is a bit of shade, but the rest of the pride is right out in the open. And once that sun gets up, it's going to be again like yesterday in the high 30s or high 90s Fahrenheit, and that means for a lion it's going to be a little uncomfortable. So I'd imagine they'll go into the shadier, thicker sections. There's some guarri bushes not far, and guarris are always the best places for cats to go and sleep during the day. They provide perfect amount of shade. It's a nice bushy tree, particularly in the winter months, and it is a great place for them to get a bit of respite from the heat. Mr. K, you want to know if lions are the toughest animal out here? No, not really. I think all animals that survive out here are tough. But in terms of the real tough ones, hippos probably are, and elephants. Those two seem to be able to deal with all kinds of things and are able to take quite a big beating. I've seen hippos that have been blood coming from them in every direction, cuts everywhere, and they seem to survive it and take a big pounding. You'll find also things like buffalo. Buffalo are very strong animals. I've seen buffalo fighting when there's lions sort of shoulder deep inside of their stomach cavity and still trying to hook the lion, so they're incredibly tough animals. Lions are tough, but probably not the toughest out here. Those bigger herbivorous animals like elephant, rhino, hippo, buffalo, those four are probably some of the toughest that we've got. And then if you go to the other side of things and you start looking away from the mammals and you go towards the insects, there's some insects out here that just seem not to give up with life. So we were talking about it yesterday. Seb, was I talking to you about it? Centipedes. We were talking about it yesterday, weren't we?
Wasn't with me now.
What? Maybe I was talking to Shan about it, but so Shan is Seb's wife, and we were talking about centipedes and how they are resilient to everything. They got this hard exoskeleton and they just never seem to want to go away, and if you try and kind of get rid of them, they just seem to cling on to life with as much as they can. So there's some tough animals even on the smaller end of the spectrum, but in terms of the big cats, I would say probably lions are one of the tougher ones. Especially the males, they go through quite a lot in their life. What have you noticed? You can see there's a bit of a wind that's kicked up now. So earlier there wasn't too much of a breeze, and now there's this breeze that has started, and it almost feels as though there's something on the wind, and you can see the females pop their head up when the wind blows and gusts, just to be able to pick up a scent and to see, okay, what's out here. Maybe they can smell something like wildebeest or zebra, or you never know, buffalo, and they then pick that up on the wind and they'll start moving in that direction. And you'll find whichever way the wind comes from tonight is the direction that these lions are going to head. They often like to walk into the wind, so when you thinking about looking for lions, it's always take into account the wind direction from the night before, and generally you'll find that these guys have headed in that direction. So they walk into the wind so that their scent is not being blown ahead of them towards any prey animals, and any prey animals that are in front of them, their scent is being blown straight towards them. So it's a clever way to do things. And you can see how they every now and then will just lift their nose slightly as the wind gusts towards them. The wind is coming, feels like from a sort of northeasterly direction at the moment. Oh, that is a position of serious rest. Now a little scratch of the tummy. Oh, I think they're getting a bit warm in the sun. That's maybe why they're moving around. Camp, you're wondering if the white eyeliner helps with the sun reflection. No, not at all, Camp. So that white will actually be a bit of a hindrance when it comes to the reflection of the sun. That white helps at night, so what it's doing is it's helping all the light come into the eye and is helping them to see better in the night time as opposed to the day. So it's not like the cheetah that have the black eye stripes. So the cheetah that James saw earlier would have had that black tear mark, and those black lines help to reduce glare. So it's why American footballers and baseball players often have that black line underneath their eyes. It's just to help reduce the glare a little bit. So the white is actually a bit of a hindrance in the daylight, and that's why lions spend a vast majority of the day resting. They only take an opportunity to hunt if it presents itself right to them, but they're not actively really searching unless there's something close by that's piqued their interest. So if buffalo to come out now, they will do that, but generally that white doesn't really help too much with glare, and so they'd rather spend their day sleeping, and also it gets a little bit hot for them. Now our Nkuhuma pride seems to be very sleepy, so I'm going to sit with them probably for a little bit longer, not too much longer, and see if they do decide to move, if now that there's one or two of the females that have popped their heads up. And then after that we might head towards Sosana, but while we do that, let's go across to Taylor, and I think she's still looking for lions, always with the lions.
We were just bumbling about. We went to try and find the other lions, but we weren't successful. I don't know where they've gone, where they've decided to hide out. And then I can't see the other lions, but I think they actually might still be sleeping, just in that thicket. Something spooked some zebras down here. So I'm just having a quick look around, but they could be a little bit on the edge, just because there have been lions around all night, and they were making quite a bit of noise last night. They're just running far down in the distance. I'm just hugging this lugger, just to see if I can see anything. It's not a big herd of zebra either, so I'm not surprised that they're a little bit on the nervous side. And there's only a handful of you. You've really got to watch yourself. Whee! Now, KSP, you're wondering if... Oh, there they are. That's fantastic. So that's what they were looking at. So, sorry, Mr. KSP, you're wondering if lions are the strongest animal out there? I would actually go with crocodiles, to be honest. Let's watch it. They're walking towards the zebra, but they don't look like they're hunting. The zebra are alarming. The zebra is staring straight at them and running away. I wonder if they're not targeting that foal that's running in the distance. You can just see running off to the right-hand side of your screen. There's a young zebra foal. We're going to just see one lioness, though, and I think it's the other youngster. Maybe the other lioness is still taking her time. Maybe she's coming through this thicket. Sneaky cats. Well, there they go. Where are you going? Oh, now they're running again. They're very playful this morning. I don't know what they're trying to do here. They look like they could possibly eat, but if they carry on like this, they're really not going to catch anything at this rate. Just trying to think, do you think we should maybe go back and jump on the other road? Or I'm trying to not do too much off-roading today. I want to try and do as little as I can, just because we have had quite a bit of rain. And I think it's important that we don't sort of abuse our privileges of being able to off-road, and I think we need to make sure that when we have had quite a bit of rain, we just we of course be a little bit respectful. It's hard to say which way they're going to go. There's roads that go like this, and I want to try and stick to them for as long as we can, but I'm just going to see which direction they go. Let's go across to James. Apparently he's got a beautiful bird.
We do have a beautiful bird. Well, it's beautiful-ish, I suppose. The secretary bird. I wanted to clear something up which I thought I should have known. In fact, I definitely should have known. But often we've been asked, why are they called a secretary bird? Which is a very valid question, and I've waffled on about the fact that the head looks a little bit like it's got a secretary's quill in it. But the bird's name, and most of you probably know this, but some might not, is a corruption of an Arabic word, sakretar, meaning hunter bird. Sakretar, meaning hunter bird. I've no doubt that I've pronounced that horrifically, so anybody who does speak Arabic, I apologize profusely for my incompetence. Anyway, the sakretar, or hunting bird, is wandering across the grasslands looking for snakes and reptiles, and it was being bombed there, or mobbed, by some crowned lapwings, which are very displeased to see it there. I suspect it would eat their chicks if it could find them. And the chicks are obviously very, very well disguised. They might not even be around yet. It might just be the eggs that are around at the moment. Then we have an interesting little friendship to the left-hand side of the secretary bird. While we appreciate with Gillian that she loves these birds, we have a friendship brimming between a topee and a warthog. Do you see them, Craig? The topee is the brown one with the horns, that's it, and the warthog, the piggish one, on the right-hand side. And they seem to be enjoying each other's company on this very blustery, sunless day in the Mara. It does feel rather, I hesitate to use the term, but I'm going to anyway, oppressive. Anyway, let's go back towards the secretary bird, who's now being mobbed again by the crowned lapwings. They're very upset. And of course, all they're doing is telling the secretary bird that he's getting warm. So I wonder if he's not actually using them to discover where their nest is. And like I said, I don't think he'd eat the eggs. I think he'd most likely only go for the actual chicks, should they be findable. Dr. Rob, you saying, can I describe the mating dance of these birds? You know, I've never seen it, Dr. Rob, so I'm afraid I cannot describe it. It is not something I've ever seen. I'm sorry about that. I actually couldn't begin to tell you what it looks like. I will tell you, however, that they can growl. Did you know that? Secretary bird is able to growl. If you go too close to their nests, they will growl at you. I've not heard a secretary bird growl, but I think it might be something worth hearing. Imagine walking towards a secretary bird's nest and hearing what sounds like a Doberman pinscher calling to you from the boughs of the tree. I think it would be very disconcerting indeed. Don't you, Craig? Pretty much, he says. That means absolutely in most people's language. Yeah. Alrighty, let's carry on from here. We'll see if we can't find something else around the next corner or so. The place is devoid of both, herds and people, just like yesterday when we were driving around here. There were no people around at all. All of them have gone towards the south, I suspect, to see if they can catch up with the wildies and Hodari the cheetah. So we'll explore the unexplored regions and see if we can't pick up on the Mugoro pride in this area. Now, Jim, you see, this is a very good question, and it is one that I do not believe there is a satisfactory answer to. You say, how do they estimate the size of the migration herds? And how sure, I guess, are we of the numbers that we quote? Not sure at all, Jim. I don't know. I've read anything from 2 million to from 1.5 to 2 million wildebeest, and I find it, I mean, that's a difference of some 25%. So it's an enormous margin for error. So I don't know how they've worked it out. I don't know if they actually ever count them, but it would seem that the number of ungulates in this area has remained pretty much static since the mid-70s, I'm told. So yeah, it's very difficult to say exactly how many and who counts them and how they know. All right, let's go back to Tristan. He is still, I think, with Mfumo, the injured male lion. I'm going to check this drainage system here called the Mugoro to see if the Mugoro pride is not on it. Good morning.
We are still with the Nkuhumas. They all got up and moved. They've now decided to find themselves some shade underneath some guarri trees. So all of them have gotten up and have now decided to position themselves in a far better, shadier spot. But if you look at Amber Eyes, who's in front now, earlier we were talking about if there was a lioness mating that it would be Amber Eyes, and you can see behind her ears there lots of bite marks. So she definitely has been mating. That's all from the male. When they mate, the male will bite down on the back of the neck of a lioness, and so while it looks bad, they all heal very quickly. But she's definitely been mating with the males because she's got bite marks all over her neck at the moment. And I suppose if they were mating with Amber Eyes, I wouldn't be surprised if Mfumo got those injuries from her. She's feisty, to say the least, so she certainly won't entertain any arrogance from the males at all. I remember the other day with a buffalo carcass, she was the last one at the carcass and just growling and carrying on at the male as he came in, and he was trying to roar and give her trouble, and she was having none of it. She kept the carcass and the section she was eating to herself, and even when the males tried to kind of force her off, she ended up just standing her ground. You can see all the sub-adults are here as well. So there is actually only 4 lionesses. The 5th lioness must be with her cubs at the moment because I don't see any sign of her in this area. But there is only the 4 lionesses and the 6 cubs. The cubs are just getting so big now that from behind the log it almost looked like a adult. But you can see they're still a little bit fluffy. Look at that. No. Mom is telling you off quickly, or aunt. Dr. Rob, you're wondering if the lions sub-vocalize at low frequencies like the elephants do. Dr. Rob, no. So these guys don't have that same ability. They will produce just low contact calls when they're trying to talk to one another. Most of their sort of indication or their communication will actually be visual cues from one another. So they'll be able to see, and you'll see when a female walks like this, often they'll all pick up their head and they'll start looking at her and seeing her body language and whether or not she's just walking to a shady area. If she's seen something, she'll start to get a lot lower and they'll pick up on those visual cues and then start to move. But you can see how they've all just gotten into the shade now and off going fast asleep. I don't think the Nkuhuma pride is going to move very much from where they are at the moment. I'm pretty sure that this is the final place for the morning. I was saying just now that they'll come to the guarris, and you can see these are all the guarri trees, the ones with the green leaves on them, and they provide the perfect shade on a hot spring day. So they would have moved into this, and I wouldn't be surprised if they just go deeper in and follow the shade around as the afternoon wears on. But we'll definitely still have them this afternoon, which is fantastic news. So I'm hoping that this evening they'll be a little bit more awake and a bit more mobile. Imagine that by this afternoon they're starting to get hungry again, and the females will be wanting to hunt, especially because the males ate the majority of that wildebeest yesterday. I'm sure the females will be wanting to find some sort of food, and so from here I would imagine they'll head towards Buffelshoek Dam side and then out up into Buffelshoek again. That's normally the path that they take from this general area. Have you got yourself a twig, little one? I didn't do it. You are wondering if the lions have problem with jigger flies. Well, we don't get jigger flies here in South Africa. We get what's called a biting fly, and I suppose they are referred to as jiggers in other parts of the world. So we call them biting flies, and yes, the lions have endless trouble with the biting flies. You'll find that when they're flicking their ears and they're kind of moving and they're biting in the air, that's because of those flies that are landing on them. And that biting fly is a horrible sensation. It kind of lands on you and the pressure just increases until it becomes painful. It's not a very pleasant thing to have around, and so the poor lions get hounded by them, and they go in their ears and on their noses and around the eyes, and it's very unpleasant to see and to have them around. I know from experience, and often sitting around lions you get hassled by those flies. You'll see every now and then a tail flicking, and that's all because of that. So you see the ears flicking on Amber Eyes there. That's those flies that are landing in the ear. You also off to find yourself some more shade. I didn't do it. You're wondering if with the season changing, do the lions get different coats, and is mange then a sort of part of the seasons changing? Well, yes and no. So mange is a mite that occurs on lions or even people and varying other cats all the time. It's a naturally occurring mite, and just with the drier months the mite tends to breed and become more common and take over. And if they go through a period of weakened condition and weakened or less nutrients, and they don't find enough nutrients, then the mite can overpopulate, and then the signs of mange start to show. So it just shows that the Nkuhuma pride in winter, you'll often find their coats become a little bit more mangy, and then as they go into summer and it starts to rain, that mange starts to die down again. The Nkuhuma pride looks very good though compared to last year. They're looking a lot better than what they did, so it all looks good, and even the Birmingham boys also are looking a lot better. In terms of their coat changing, you'll find in winter their coat does go a little thicker, but in summer it will thin out. You see it same as domestic cats. As the temperature changes, so the coats will change slightly as well. This is our oldest lioness. Shame my girl is hot this morning. At least there's a bit of a breeze today. It doesn't feel nearly as bad as yesterday yet. I'm sure that it's going to get warm by this afternoon. So Megan's telling me that it's 72 and 22 degrees this morning, which is very warm for a morning. It's crazy. Seb and I were talking about it a week ago. We were going out and we had blankets and we had jackets, and I was going out in 3 different layers and long pants. This morning I'm in shorts and a t-shirt and just a small kind of fleece vest, and at the moment I'm starting to actually get quite warm. So it's definitely getting a lot warmer in the mornings. It's been a very sharp change, and it's amazing how this has happened the last 2 years. We've had these kind of winters, and then all of a sudden it kind of warms up, and then that's it. We're straight into basically summer. The springs tend to be so short in the last few years, and I'm not sure if that's an indication that we're going to have a dry summer or if we're going to have a wet summer. Hopefully it will be a more wet summer than what we've had. It's definitely needed. The bush and all the dams need water. We know that Gari Dam is starting to dry a little bit now, and Seb was showing me, because I actually haven't seen Gari Dam since I've been away, and it's pretty much halved since I was last year, which is crazy. There's now no longer a link between that puddle on the southern side and the bigger puddle on the northern side. So I don't think that dam's going to be around for too many more weeks. If we don't get some rain, I would say 2 to 3 weeks, and we'll have just mud there, which is quite crazy. But it seems as though our little cubs are no longer cubs and sub-adults now. They're starting to look more and more adult-like as the days go by. So it's really good to catch up with them and see that they're doing very well. But they're finding themselves some shade, so we're going to carry on, and while we do that, let's go across to James Henry, who's probably very envious of the hairstyle that the crowned cranes have.
Aren't these the most magnificently outlandish birds you've ever seen?